Okay, so let's jump right into a really fascinating question. How much can we actually learn about everyone just by studying a single person? I mean, it sounds kind of impossible, doesn't it? But what if I told you that some of the biggest leaps forward in science started exactly that way? Today, we're diving into the science of the single case. This quote is about a man known to the world only as Patient HM, and his story is just incredible. See, after brain surgery for his epilepsy, he completely lost the ability to form new memories. He could tell you about his childhood, but he couldn't tell you what he ate for breakfast 5 minutes ago. For decades, scientists studied him, just him, and in the process, they totally rewrote the book on how human memory works. His single, tragic case unlocked everything. And that story brings us perfectly to our first world of single case research, the case study. The best way to think about this is as the art of the story, a really deep narrative dive into one person's unique life and experience. Now, the key word here is intensive. A case study is not just a quick glance. No, we're talking about researchers gathering a mountain of information. They're looking at every possible angle. They're watching behavior, doing these long, in-depth interviews, digging through old letters and records, all to build this incredibly rich, complete picture of just one individual. So why on earth would you do all this? Well, case studies are amazing launchpads for new ideas. They're where brilliant hypotheses are born. They give doctors and therapists a chance to try out new, innovative treatments. And really, they're the only way we can study incredibly rare things like an autistic savant with a mind-blowing memory. Or, as one fascinating study showed, chimpanzees who show signs of PTSD after being rescued. You just can't get a large group for that. To see how this fits into the big picture, you've got to understand two different approaches. Most of what we think of as science is what's called the nomothetic approach. You study big groups, you find the average, and you try to make universal laws. The case study, on the other hand, is idiographic. It's all about understanding what makes one individual tick. One is looking for the typical, the other is hunting for the unique. And you know what? We need both. But, and this is a big but, there's a catch. Just because a story is powerful and compelling, that doesn't make it scientific proof. And this is where the classic case study starts to run into some serious trouble. Okay, so let's look at the case of Susan. She goes to therapy feeling pretty bad about herself, low confidence, thinks she has a terrible memory. So her therapist throws the kitchen sink at the problem. They practice scary social situations, she gets homework assignments, they work on challenging her negative thoughts. And guess what? It works. Susan feels way more confident and in control. A huge success story, right? Well, maybe. I mean, her story is great, but let's be scientists for a second. What actually made her better? Was it the homework? The role-playing? Was it just having a therapist who listened? Or, here's the thought, maybe she would have gotten better on her own anyway? Suddenly, our great story has a huge question mark hanging over it. We can't actually pinpoint the cause. And Susan's case lays bare the biggest weaknesses of this method. It is super hard to draw a clear cause and effect line. Plus, you have to worry about bias. The therapist wants the treatment to work, so they might see improvement that isn't really there. And the biggest problem of all, even if it worked for Susan, how in the world do we know it would work for anyone else? This is where we need to leave the world of stories and enter our second world, the single case experiment. This is a total game changer. It's not about telling a story anymore. It's about building an airtight case with hard science, all while still focusing on just one person. And the absolute foundation of this entire world is something called the baseline stage. It's simple. Before you try to change anything, you just watch and measure. You get a clear, objective picture of the behavior as it is. But this baseline does more than just describe the before. It lets you predict the after. It answers the crucial question. If we don't do anything at all, what's likely to happen? Okay, so once that baseline is locked in, scientists can pull out some seriously cool tools to prove cause and effect. Let's look at two of the most powerful designs in their entire toolbox. First up, we've got the AB-AB design, sometimes called a reversal design, and the logic here is just genius. You start with your baseline, we'll call that A, then you introduce your treatment, that's B. Then, and this is the brilliant part, you take the treatment away and go back to A. And finally, you bring the treatment back one more time, another B. To really see this in action, let's think about this real-world problem. An 8-year-old girl who was constantly banging her spoon on the table at meals. It was so disruptive, she couldn't even eat with her classmates. So the researchers started with stage A, the baseline. They just observed and recorded. And, yep, just as expected, the spoon banging was happening all the time. Then they moved to stage B. They introduced a treatment called facial screening. Every time she banged the spoon, a soft cloth was briefly pulled over her face. The change was immediate and dramatic. The spoon banging almost completely vanished. Now for the moment of truth. They returned to stage A. They took the treatment away completely. And what do you think happened? The spoon banging came roaring right back. This reversal is the smoking gun. It's incredibly powerful evidence that the treatment was causing the change. And just to seal the deal, they went back to stage B one last time and brought the treatment back. And just like clockwork, the spoon banging stopped again. It's like they had a light switch for the behavior. They could turn it on and off, proving beyond a reasonable doubt that the facial screening was the cause. But wait a minute. What if you can't take a treatment away? I mean, if you teach someone a new skill, you can't just magically make them unlearn it. For situations like that, we have another clever tool, the multiple baseline design. The idea here is to track several baselines at the same time, but you introduce the treatment to each one at a different point in time. Take Leslie, a 9-year-old with selective mutism. She was chatty at home, but totally silent in public. So researchers set up 3 different baselines for her speaking. First, ordering food in a restaurant. Second, meeting new adults. And third, playing with other kids she didn't know. Okay, so first, they applied the treatment, which was a mix of role-playing and positive reinforcement, but only to the restaurant situation. And look what happened. She started ordering her own food, but her behavior with new adults and kids didn't change one bit. Those other 2 situations stayed flat at baseline. Then, after a little while, they applied the same treatment to the second situation, meeting new adults. And bam! Right on cue, she started talking to them. And all the while, her behavior with new peers was still unchanged. This staggered effect, where the behavior only changes right after the treatment is applied to it, is powerful proof that the treatment is working and you never had to take anything away. So, we've explored 2 very different worlds, haven't we? We have the rich, artful story of the case study, and then we have the cold, hard science of the single-case experiment. You might think they're completely at odds with each other, but they're not. Not at all. In fact, they're the perfect partners. Think of it like this. Case studies provide the spark, the flash of genius. They give us those fascinating stories and those amazing what-if questions. And then the single-case experiments come in to provide the solid proof. One inspires, the other confirms. You really need both. And this brings it all back to you. The next time you see a powerful, personal story online, a testimonial for some miracle product or a new life-changing technique, you'll know what to ask. Is this just a compelling story? Or is it actual proof? Is this the spark? Or is it the science? And understanding that difference, well, that's everything.